Hello, guys, and welcome to a new episode of Decentra Talks. I am Ciro, the host, and today I have with me a very special guest. Daniel is my co-host and co-founder of Decentra. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining, and would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, great talking to you. So I'm Daniel, and I would consider myself a citizen of the internet. That's a weird introduction, I know, but that summarizes my nature very well. And yeah, if you want, I can also explain why.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so for that, we have to go back in time when I was a bit younger, so maybe 10 to 15 years old. And I wasn't part of any DAOs yet. I think they didn't even exist yet. But I was part of a lot of online communities in the context of gaming and also in other things. And one of the first games I really played in a more serious fashion was called Lords of Knights. And I'm not just telling this to you because I like this game, but because it has had a profound impact on my life. When I played this game, and it was like a popular mobile strategy game with a built-in forum and chat, and I became like the foreign minister in one of the biggest clans in this game. And that happened because I had betrayed my old clan and revealed sensitive information to this new clan. So I tell this story because this was the starting point of my journey online and sparked this fire in me when it comes to embracing anonymity, rejecting credentialism. Yeah? Nobody knew how old I was. Yeah? I was like 11, 12 years old, what my real name was, but they accepted me. And this is now where we get to crypto and DAOs because like this is all about crypto here in this podcast. And like for me, DAOs are like the next evolution of communities online. And I'm attracted to this because of like my history doing all these video games, which was mostly pointless. Yeah, you can learn like a lot of things, but at some point you will reach a ceiling. And now I think, yeah, finally with crypto and DAOs, you can actually have a real world impact. Yeah, by doing very similar things to what you previously did in video games. So yeah, that's a quick introduction. Not telling too much about the other things I'm up to now. We can go into that later or now, however you want.
Honestly, that's a great intro. I kind of want to share a bit of backstory about myself now. I also grew up on the internet. The first time I had a computer, I think I was 4, and we had that old dial-up internet. You can't be on the phone and on the internet at the same time. Everything was really slow, but it felt like such an amazing new world, new frontier, unexplored. You could do whatever you want, and that freedom was extremely attractive to me, especially growing up in New York, where there's like so many people, so many rules, so much going on all the time. I felt free online. There's this anime that I used to like to watch called Durarara, and the point of it is I think it's the first time I ever saw the reference of a DAO or an explanation as to what it is in this anime. A bunch of high school students. They start like an online forum community. They have a chat room. It looks extremely similar to Discord, and I think this was before Discord was even made. Like the anime came out, it felt like a prediction of the future of how these communities form and what kind of power they have. So if anybody is interested in that kind of thing, I would really recommend giving that anime a watch. It's definitely worth it. So I will go back to you. So you grew up on the internet. You find this to be the place for you. It's a very accepting environment, and now that you've gone into DAOs and started working in this crypto space, you feel like that kind of extends that freedom that you had earlier in life. Could you tell me what do you do in crypto and how did you get into it in the first place?
Yeah, so I got into crypto actually just last year. I mean, I've heard of it before, but it never really, I don't know, I never really got to the bottom of it because if you look at it at a superficial level, it's just speculation. And I didn't really break through this barrier and saw what's hidden behind all this noise. And that only happened last year. And it's very quickly, like, actually, I got into it because, like, I was working on a few job boards. So I had a job board for the space industry. It wasn't making me a lot of money. And then I also wanted to have another job board for an industry that was well paying. So actually, I came across crypto and blockchain then again, after I had, like, a few years earlier for the first time read about it. And that was actually also how I researched, like, all those companies, and I realized, wow, there are companies that aren't actually companies, they are DAOs. And that was, like, super intriguing for me, because I never really had encountered that before, like, with the job boards and everything else was I doing. And so I got into that. I did this job board only for a few months before I ended it, but because I did this job board, I actually also stumbled across Superfluid and, like, had this list of 50 and 60 different projects and companies that I actually wanted to write and offer them that they can, like, have their jobs in my job board. So as I said, that didn't work well. I stopped this at some point. It wasn't so interesting. And I was now suddenly in this DAO space and had, like, encountered Superfluid. And I think most of the listeners know very well what Superfluid is, because I think, you have had a few people on the podcast here before. And it's a super interesting new primitive, like, with the streamed payments. And that's like super exciting, and because it's actually an improvement to the status quo we have now in this current world. And already it is now, because a lot of things in crypto, they are a bit too much in the early stages, and you don't really understand the use case, to be quite frank. But the Superfluid seemed very intuitive, and so I then got into Ricochet, which, like, is building on top of Superfluid, and they had, like, a very interesting it was a DAO, so that was quite intriguing. And I through that, like, I got to know you, and I also got into a lot of other DAOs with the time, and it just felt somewhat very cool, because you had, like, previously I had built, like, some Web 2 projects and doing a lot of stuff, and before that I had played those video games. And with the video games, you had, like, no financial gain for most. There's no financial gain for most doing that. There's no real world impact you can have playing games. And now you have those DAOs, which are, like, quite similar to those forums of games, but you have a real world impact.
I find there to be something really special about how DAOs, especially using Discord, there seems to be, like, this gamification of social connections and creating and building. There's, like, these dynamics that don't usually exist in traditional workplaces. Like, this is from simple things like gaining levels when you message on the board, to gaining special roles that give you access to more chats. It all feels, like, very natural and very exciting, and it keeps me, like, stimulated and motivated to participate in these communities. And then there's this additional part of there's no full commitment that you have to make. Like in traditional business and traditional work, where you have one company, you have to work for the one company, and that's pretty much your life for, like, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, how much time you choose to spend with it. With DAOs, I feel like you have the freedom to go and work with as many as you want, and instead of it being a problem, it's actually encouraged. I also wanted to touch back on something that you mentioned at the beginning, which is the use case. So I've noticed that here in Europe and in America, there isn't as much use case as people would love there to be, but having a financial system that is open to participation and does not discriminate in terms of like location or country or ethnicity, nationality. Anybody can join, anybody can open a MetaMask wallet, anybody can start transacting in less than 30 minutes. That's special. That's something that has not been done yet. We have an amazing financial structure in the West. We can send money to anybody. We can open bank accounts. We can buy. We can borrow, lend, do stocks. And the rest of the world, that is extremely lacking. And the only time those people can access these kinds of services is through Western companies that are not fully in the regulated zone or in crypto, which I think is the preference. So to recap what you said.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
It's actually probably also one of the reasons why it took me so long to get into crypto. Because for us, like in the Western world, having those trustless protocols, removing intermediaries isn't actually like this great thing, because it is a great thing, but it's not so needed, because generally speaking, we can, like, it works very well with our banks. But for the rest of the world, this is like a huge problem. And it's also probably by a lot of Western commentators, I find their comments very very difficult, because they always look at this from their own perspective. But you really have to go to make the step and look, for example, at Africa or other countries that are currently in developing countries, where you really don't want to put your money into some banks that are like all shady, and like I wouldn't want to do that. But even here in the Western world, I think it's gaining in relevancy. I mean, like we saw it a bit with in Canada early this year, and in other jurisdictions where like the government is slowly but surely, trying to undermine some liberties. Yeah, because I mean, it for them, like every large organization is like almost cancerous. They want to expand their power, and in the case of the state, like this has real world impact on individuals. Yeah, because every time the government is like doing something in this in this regard, it's taking something away from other people, because they are not the ones who are actively producing a lot of things, so they have to take it from someone else. And so it's tough. Yeah, like
I have to double what you just said about Canada. So that was, I feel like that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me when I saw what happened in Canada. So I understand the perspective, and to avoid getting into the political sphere of this, I don't agree or do not or like disagree with what those people stand for. It's just the idea that if somebody in the government does not like what you're doing, they can just freeze your accounts, freeze your cards, and stop you from buying food, medicine, getting a hotel, paying for rent, whatever it is. They can just turn that off and take away full control of your entire life. That's extremely, extremely scary, because even if it's not being used right now for bad, in the future it could be. That power should not exist within one government or one person or one group of people. It should be distributed over everybody that participates, because that way you will always be able to transact regardless of who you are or what you're doing. And I think that people need to learn how important that is by going outside of their comfort zone and visiting different countries or learning about what's going on in the world.
Way more eloquent way.
I wanted to talk to you.
Put it into a way more.
Honestly, I'm happy someone else mentioned it because I feel like people have forgotten.
Some time ago, I saw a tweet and it was like, your bank account at the moment is a 2 out of 3 multisig. You are one of the multisig signers, your bank is the second multisig signer, and the government is the third multisig signer. And if you look at this, it's true. Like, you alone, without either the bank or the government agreeing, you can't move your money. Yeah? And that's like you wouldn't want your Gnosis multisig to have two signers that have nothing to do, not really much to do with you, and might have contrary interests. Like, you wouldn't want to have this on your multisig, so why on your with your bank account? It's
The way I see it is that there's definitely like a need for both of these systems. I don't see one existing without the other, because because crypto right now, I think the biggest issue with crypto is the fact that it's a system that exists on its own, and it won't be very useful if there isn't a fiat under backbone that helps you like go in and go out and actually turn the internet money into physical cash that you could use to buy stuff. We haven't gotten to the point where we could just directly buy stuff with our crypto. Some banks are trying to do that, but then you basically fall into the same problem of at some point the government has control of that. So we're not there yet, but I feel like people need to start embracing this technology.
on VPN with crypto.
Sorry?
So there are a few things where you currently already are able to pay for things, but obviously, yeah, it's quite underwhelming. I also thought it would go quicker. Like, it's tough, but I think, and like the other development that is like a bit difficult is that like now a lot of people, I think most people are actually using Binance to pay for things, and that's actually like, I mean, that's honestly, yeah, I don't know. I mean, you have crypto, this huge decentralized technology, and then you are relying on this like single corporation to do most things. Like, I don't know what's your take on this, but I'm like still I'm puzzled why people still have money on centralized exchanges. And I mean, I know it's a bit more intuitive, but that was like one of the first things when I got into crypto. I moved away from centralized exchanges because, like, how many failures do there need to be? How many more failures do there need to be before people understand this? Like, we had Mt. Gox. I wasn't around at that time in 2014, and we had one exchange failure after another. And obviously, in DeFi, there's also this potential for hacks and exploits. But generally speaking, if you have set up a multisig wallet or even like a MetaMask wallet, I think it's superior to. I mean, even though it's tough, I think maybe a MetaMask wallet isn't superior to your centralized exchange. But I mean, I would hope it to be.
So, in my opinion, I'm on the side of like decentralized everything. I don't use centralized exchanges. I used to use them when I first started in crypto, like as an on-ramp and an off-ramp, but right now I personally found like with Ledger, there's a bank called CL that you could deposit some of the money that you have in Ledger into the bank, and then you can use a Visa card to pay for things. So they like give you a limited spending depending on how much crypto you deposit into the Visa card account. So I use that for like payments, and then I use MetaMask. I use Gnosis and Ledger for storing money and developing and interacting with sites. And I find that to be superior to pretty much all of the other methods that are currently available. So, for example, if you have Coinbase or you have Binance, there's that risk that they will shut down. And since there's no FCIS, I think insurance, I don't remember if I have that right, but there's like this bank insurance that you get with traditional banks, which is up to $250,000 in cash. So if the bank shuts down, the federal government takes care of that wherever you are. We don't have that in crypto. So if Coinbase shuts down, if Binance shuts down, that's it. That's a wrap. All your money is gone. It'll probably take 10, 20 years in legal battles for you to even see a percentage of that back, if that's going to happen in the first place. but then I have to remind people that I'm a technically minded person. So I'm a developer. I read code all day. I interact with these systems all day. So I have this advantage in terms of the ability to learn and also the time spent learning this stuff. Most people don't get that. They don't have the time to, they already have like a traditional job or some other job that they have to spend 8 hours a day in. And they have like transportation and taking care of their families. They don't have the time to learn like what happens when you make a new wallet. What really is a mnemonic phrase? What is your secret key? They don't have the time to do that. And I think that that's a failure of the UX developers in the Web3 space. Most of us are like backend developers, interested in building like protocols and systems over building like websites and apps that can help you easily interact with this stuff. So I think that's where we are right now, and I think we're at the tail end of this whole process where in the next 5 to 10 years it's going to become more regulated, more standardized, and that's the point where we're going to get more regular people in space. Um, what do you think about that? Do you agree from your perspective?
I don't think regulation is the solution, but it's true. It's a failure of the developers. And I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of exciting things, for example, with smart contracts wallets and account abstraction that might now finally get to Ethereum with this with one of the next upgrades. And I think there's a lot of potential to simplify the user experience. But yeah, I mean, the question for me is like, when you get into crypto or when you invest in cryptocurrencies, you should have a basic understanding of at least like wallets and all this stuff, because otherwise, like, I don't think your investments will. Yeah, I don't know. Think that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like investing in the stock market without understanding like what exactly is going on a high level. You need a basic understanding. Initially, what made me very attracted to the idea of Decentra is the fact that both of us are familiar with front-end development, so we're able to produce user experiences that are better than traditionally most of the developers that I've worked with in the space, even if it's just by a little bit. So that's definitely a part there. And then also you have this like intense knowledge of all of these different protocols. This is where I want to get into what you do, because you do, or you've done in the past, airdrop farming, airdrop hunting, and this is a very complicated process. So I want to have you share a bit of that experience, what it's like, what does it even mean for the people listening, and then maybe if you could like share how do you organize all the wallets, how do you keep things like
Yeah,
clean and tidy, how do you keep this
tell you a
running?
bit about what I do. I mean, it's not just the only thing I do, but generally speaking, I'm always attracted to gaming systems, to like everything that can be gamed will be gamed by me. That's how I put it sometimes. But I moved a bit away from that. But yeah, I mean, I can tell you a bit about the history of airdrop farming, because like at the moment, like this is like the mainstream thing to do, but it wasn't always. Yeah, so like airdrop hunting now, it has become super competitive, yeah, and profits are dwindling. Just take a look at, for example, the Odyssey NFTs of Arbitrum. There were like hundreds of thousands of wallets like minting those NFTs, because they thought like maybe this has something to do with an airdrop. I don't think this is true. Like I find that a bit pointless, but because that wouldn't make too much sense. But I don't know. I'm not gonna go into the details here now. But you see, airdrops like started with this purpose of like increasing like awareness, and also like it's kind of a marketing strategy on the one hand, and on the other hand, it's also like a way to just give ownership to the community members. That's how it started, and why Uniswap did this airdrop like in 2020, or was it 2020? I think so. And that is actually a noble thing to do. That makes a lot of sense, because this helps like create a sense of ownership and community. It ultimately, hopefully, also benefits the project in the long run, because now your users are also the owners of this protocol, which is like a revolutionary concept, like in Web 2 that doesn't exist at all, other than with like stocks of big tech firms, but not from like very early stages onwards, and not for free. But then people obviously, they got that there was a lot of money to be made, especially like in this bull market last year, where like some airdrops had values that are like, it's almost mind-blowing. So in dollar terms, and so a lot of people got into this, and slowly but surely people also understood, okay, I can use not only a single wallet to get an airdrop, but if I think that that an airdrop will take place, why not creating 50 wallets or 100 wallets and getting much more money? So people started doing that, and at the moment that was like quite a niche thing to do. So at the beginning that was quite a niche thing to do, and not a lot of people did it. It wasn't a serious problem. But then beginning with this year, all of a sudden, like most of the interactions with apps were done by airdrop farmers, and that's now we are getting into a problematic situation. But it's also not like quite straightforward, not quite black and white, because it's also some protocols are actually, so it's not just problematic. Some protocols are actually using airdrop farmers to their advantage, which is something not a lot of people know. For example, there is Granary. This is an ARF fork, and they are heavily implying an airdrop. They haven't delivered on it, but it's obviously the goal of this is driving fake volume, and then maybe as a next step, raising funding from VCs through this fake volume, through this fake activity that was created by airdrop farmers. And it's like they are not incriminating themselves. This is a genius strategy. There's also VIA protocol who are doing that very well. So that's a great way to actually get some traction, and it might be fake, it might not be fake, who knows? But it probably is mostly fake. And then they are just raising money off of those fake charts and fake traction, which is an interesting development. I mean, it's a very
To me, this feels like a game of cat and mouse between the airdrop farmers and the protocols themselves, because both of them benefit from it in such a strange way. I want to just recap to the people that might not be familiar with airdrop farming. So some Web3 protocols, in order to incentivize, reward, and build users, they will take a investment, let's say $1 million, and split it up to, I don't know, maybe 10,000, so $100 each, and they will send this out to the most active users on a protocol, or people that shared or retweeted.
So it's not that they take USDC or stable coins. They launch a token, and when they are launching this token, obviously maybe 20% go to the team members, another 20% go to the investors. There's some percentage allocated to the treasury, and then they say, okay, maybe let's take 5% of the total supply of this token and give it out to our early supporters, our early users, which like the intention behind that is good. But the problem is, like, that can be farmed very easily, because a lot of people are now expecting those protocols to do this. So maybe if you want, I can like share a bit about what I'm now doing to counter that, because like you could accept that this is like the status quo and that this is how things are, but I'm not a person who just accepts those things. I try to see what can be done to defeat this and make this like once again like a better system. Yeah. So if you want, I can share a bit about what I did with Safe, which recently. Yeah.
Please do. So, just to let you know, actually, ever since we started talking about this topic a long time ago, I always thought that that would be the path for you because you understand how these things work from spending so much time studying them, and that talent could be used to do some really amazing things. I'm not going to spoil it. You should tell the story yourself. Please do.
Which is known formally as Gnosis Safe, like this multisig wallet. They decided to do an airdrop, but they also obviously knew a lot of their users might be airdrop farmers, and so they asked the community to help them identifying users that try to farm like this airdrop, and this was done with the example of Hop Bridge in mind, who pioneered this model earlier this year. And the simple rules were like reports must contain at least 10 addresses that are connected with each other, that are controlled by the same person, and successful like submissions then receive 25% of the saved tokens and the remaining 75% of those recovered tokens were then distributed to the rest of the airdrop recipients, so that they also now get what was kind of stolen by the others who were trying to game the system. So I came across this, and then I had like done a lot of things with Dune Analytics in the past, and I felt like, okay, maybe I can find some airdrop farmers. I have a deep understanding, a deep knowledge about this, and so I spent like a weekend, day and night, trying to find airdrop farmers. I did some pattern recognition, so those addresses don't even need to have like the same. Don't even need to have like an on-chain link between them. But if you have like a lot of addresses that interact at the exact same time with the exact same token value, they have the exact same actions, you can say, okay, there is like a high probability, 99.9% probability that this is actually the same user, and you don't need to have an on-chain link. Obviously, if you have an on-chain link between the addresses, that makes it a lot easier, and that's also what like a lot of inexperienced airdrop farmers do. They just have like this one wallet, and with this wallet they fund maybe 50 other wallets. So that's not the smartest thing to do. But actually, this even works with a lot of protocols because they don't do anything. Like, especially in the past year, that was insane. They didn't try to find out whether or not their airdrop was scammed. Like, they just distributed those tokens to everyone. So that actually worked in the past. But now, obviously, airdrop farmers need to step up their game because the airdrop the hunters of the airdrop farmers are also stepping up their game and trying their best to make sure that they are hunted down and don't receive any tokens. But yeah, it's a tricky situation because they obviously also improve in the ways they are doing their things. So a lot of people maybe think of airdrop farming as a very straightforward thing to do, but I can talk a bit about the state of the art airdrop farming if you want to.
Yes, please do. The only thing I would even think about is just like looking through Etherscan. to learn about. So I want to hear
Yeah.
what
So
kind of
airdrop farmers
strategies people are taking on
currently
both sides.
focusing a lot on layer 2 protocols, layer 2 networks, because there's probably the most money to be made. Like a lot of smaller protocols, like there's not a lot of money to be made, especially in this beer market now. So they are focusing on optimism, on arbitrum, on CK sync, on scroll, on layer 0, and so on. And what the really sophisticated players are doing, they have like maybe 10 different centralized exchange addresses. So they are on Bybit, on Binance, on OKX, on Huobi, and through those centralized exchanges, they fund the wallets with whom they want to perform like those Cybil attacks. And then they try to they can fund one wallet, and this one wallet maybe sends some funds to another 2 or 3, but you never really want to have more than 5 wallets connected in one cluster, because that's a lot of times the threshold of what is acceptable and what's not. So this is like the first layer, obfuscation layer, is using different centralized exchanges to fund those wallets, to have no on-chain link between the addresses. Then the next obfuscation layer is practically figuring out, okay, you want to interact with different protocols. You don't want to have like the same patterns in each address. So like that's tough with a bot. So a lot of people do it manually, but there are some bots, obviously, that you can program, some macro scripts where you just interact with those different protocols. It's always randomized. You take different amounts of money. Yeah, so not just always $10 per swap, for example, but sometimes $11, sometimes. And the more the better. Obviously, if you are not capital constrained, you hopefully do it with $1,000 or more, because that's obviously sometimes also like one of the criteria for an airdrop, that you just have some volume, that exceeds $1,000, for example. So this is the second obfuscation layer, just trying to randomizing with what protocols, with what value, with what dollar amounts you are transacting. And then the third obfuscation layer, this then comes into place when it comes to practically cashing out. And actually cashing out is like another problem, because if you send it to the same centralized exchange address, and that's something a bit difficult, because you're revealing your identity. You once again have like this on-chain link, and so the best way is to not cash out at all. So it's just you keep the money in your different addresses, and you just build this authentic user profile. You are interacting a bit on Optimism, on Ethereum mainnet. You are maybe donating to Gitcoin to build like this on-chain profile of a real user. And it's indistinguishable from like an actual real user. So then you have like maybe 100 addresses. You maybe even have like a Twitter account for each of those addresses, which is some work involved. So not everyone is doing that, but you practically, have like this history of transactions, and it's getting then increasingly difficult to spot those people. Because like previously you saw last year with some airdrops, some people just created like 100 accounts. Then they just use this account, this wallet, to perform one action. For example, making a swap on Paraswap, and then it's over. Then they hopefully wanted to get an airdrop, maybe received it, maybe didn't receive it, and then was it over. But now, since people like have interacted with a lot of airdrops and tried to farm a lot of airdrops over the past year, all of the sudden they actually have dozens, if not hundreds, of transactions, and it becomes more difficult because it really looks like a genuine user. So yeah,
I wanna like the most incredible thing about this whole process is the amount that you have to put into the system because I recall you've told me this in the past, but like you could take like let's say $1,000, right? And you can perform all these actions on all these different chains with the same $1,000. So you don't have to have like it's not like you're depositing your money somewhere. Sometimes that's the condition for you to get the airdrop, but a lot of protocols they just want you to like swap, have a lens account, whatever, just like very very simple stuff that doesn't require that initial amount to go in like indefinitely. You can recycle the same $1,000 over all of the different protocols. So it is really interesting to see that because usually if you want to make money you especially if you want to do it on a consistent basis. But if you have a profile that's interacted with 30 protocols in a year, if half of them give you an airdrop, that's like a 1 month you get like I don't know $1,000. You could do this over like 10 wallets. You could see how dangerous this could be.
I mean,
How much
it has
somebody
become super
can get out of
competitive,
these
huh?
systems,
But
right?
because, and one of the reasons for that is that now a lot of those airdrop farming takes place on layer 2 scaling solutions like Optimism. And the thing here, it's even more extreme. Yeah, you have 10 cents per transaction costs, yeah? Way less than on Ethereum mainnet, and all of a sudden, like you can you can do this on a huge scale, yeah, which is probably also necessary, yeah, because like since it is so competitive, you now have to outscale other participants, be smarter about it, or find like a different niche entirely. So like the golden days are definitely over. Now you have to do this on a really, I mean, the people who are doing it, they have to do it on a really huge scale. And we are talking about hundreds of accounts that an individual controls, yeah, and like, and that's like on Optimism, for example, or Arbitrum, it's like super easy. Like you you maybe a lot of those people fund like a wallet, maybe even only with $10. Yeah, because like it's it's unlike like for example a DEX, a decentralized exchange, or a bridge, where a lot of times there was like this minimum volume requirement. Optimism, for example, in the previous airdrop didn't have like any minimum volume requirement. In fact, like their previous airdrop, I have to say, like those requirements were kind of ridiculous. Like you got like a lot of tokens just for having done 2 transactions. So like that was this, yeah, it's like a bit weird, but so people saw this and now they went crazy. And generally speaking, maybe also an interesting point here is to make that I think, I don't know how about you, I mean in the last months it became really mainstream, and airdrop farming, but generally speaking, I think people in the Western world, in the US primarily, still don't really have an understanding of what's going on there in this world, because most of the people that are doing this are either doing it stealth, so nobody should know about it, or they are like in Asia, where this is like really huge. And a lot of those people previously played those play to earn games, yeah, like Axie Infinity and however they are called. And now all those games are dead, and they are crypto natives, yeah? So they are now searching for other opportunities to make some money. And I can only estimate it, but I think certainly a few, like a couple tens of thousands of people in Asia, primarily in China, but also Philippines, Vietnam, are now trying to farm airdrops, which is quite hilarious. But you have to respect the hustle. I mean, because the truth is, the protocols have to become smarter. They have to find other ways to to reward their previous contributors. They have to level up their defense against those airdrop farmers. It's the fault of the protocols, yeah, because as I said before in this podcast, like everything that can be gamed will be gamed by some people, yeah? And yeah, it's what it is.
I wanted to talk about the defense side for a bit, but before I go into that, we are talking about how in the future these protocols, now that they're seeing insane competition over their airdrops and their incentivization structure, they need to figure out more intuitive, more consistent ways of rewarding their users and using strategy, because it is a very good strategy in my opinion. It's really enticing, especially when you talk about users from other countries outside of the West, because like a $10 airdrop for them could be a day's worth of income in their country. So this is a much more viable strategy even now under the competition in Eastern countries over the West. But at Ricochet Exchange, which is the protocol that we met through, they built an airdrop system where instead of airdropping you an amount at once, they use Superfluid to stream the airdrop to you over a month, which keeps you coming back to the protocol to collect your gains and shows you like a sense of like evolution, right? Every you go in, you whatever, let's say $5. You take it out of your account and you see, oh, the website's changed a bit. There's a new color, there's a new button there, there's a new feature, whatever. I feel like that's the future of things, where Superfluid could be a backbone of an incentivization structure that works really, really well. It just hasn't caught on yet. And I think that is partly due to the fact that people are only focused on defense right now instead of building a new structure. But since you've been on both sides, could you please share a bit about the defense side of things? How do protocols defend against airdrop farmers?
Yeah, because it's clear that like those protocols, there probably aren't any people working for those protocols who have a deep understanding of this. But if you invite the community, you get the brightest minds. That like write scripts that are searching Etherscan and those block explorers for any suspicious activity, and that worked very well with Hop Exchange. That worked very well with Safe, who also did that. And the people are just like, it's pattern recognition. It's searching for clusters of addresses. It's all this stuff that people are doing, which is quite tough to do. It takes some time to look into this. But that's one super effective strategy. Something else you can do is obviously just making the criteria a bit different. Like, for example, or a bit more difficult to achieve, so that you really only have genuine community members that are most likely to have met this threshold. For example, you can say, okay, you require at least 10 transactions. But obviously, once you do this, the next time the airdrop farmers already have learned this lesson, are then like doing the same. And as you previously said, it's a cat and mouse game. So having stricter criteria so only goes so far. But yeah, I think like this, inviting the community and just having like 50 people writing scripts, searching the block explorers is like a great way to do this. But apart from that, maybe you really think you need to redesign it from the ground up. So maybe it's just too gameable. Yeah, and you can think of, okay, let's have this now, and maybe just reward like contributors for like the proven contributions they made, and then just not give too many tokens to just people who used your protocol, it's like a tough decision because it has a lot of advantages. Yeah? I mean, creating a sense of ownership, but if it's too much gamed, yeah, it's also a danger. Yeah? Because the truth is, it could potentially lead to governance capture by a few Cybils. Yeah, because oftentimes when the token launches, most of the token supply is locked, yeah, for the team members, for the investors. They don't have any tokens at all, but the airdrop recipients are then like maybe only have 5% of the total supply, but maybe they have a third or half of the complete voting power at the launch day. Yeah? And if now like a few people have heavily Cybilled like this airdrop, all of the sudden like they have control over huge voting power. So that's like also dangerous. So and something that needs to be taken into account. Yeah, it's a tough decision. I mean, because generally speaking, I recently asked like this chat GPT, this chatbot by OpenAI, what would they recommend me? What would they recommend protocols to do against the Cybil attackers? And they recommended to implement strict KYC, which is probably not the best thing to do. I mean that, but yeah, that does fit well.
Not at all.
But
I don't think that fits well
it
with the community.
it's also not entirely wrong. Yeah, if you could have a KYC that is decentralized, that might be interesting. Yeah, maybe through zero knowledge proofs, you can do something where you just can say, okay, you are a real person, but nobody knows who you are. You're
Yeah.
just like one person. Yeah.
There's two ways, in my opinion, the decentralized identity game is going to work in the future. And this is just from like how I've seen things. So one is something that you mentioned earlier in the podcast, which is profiling the wallet. Like this wallet will have some kind of counter, some kind of non-transferable token that shows how many protocols they've interacted with, how many DAOs that they're a member of, what kind, like it just gives a quick summary of everything related to that wallet address. So that I see that being one way, and then the proofs, like you said, where you prove that you are a person without necessarily showing what you have. And the way this would be done, I don't know how you would be able to show like identification cards with this, but it can be done,
I mean,
and eventually it will be
humanity
done.
exists,
We just
but,
haven't gotten there yet. I do want to talk a bit. Proof of humanity, yeah, proof of humanity. I think Gitcoin are partnered with this like passport. I don't remember what it was called, but it's like a Web3 passport basically, where you can go and connect your wallet, and they'll like read your IP, access to that kind of information, and then find out real world info on you that they can use to verify your existence and that you're on this computer in this country consistently, so that you're not using a VPN, you're not like there's not multiple versions of you in the same location with the same ID, like a device fingerprint. So I've seen that before, but it's pretty invasive in my opinion, because you're giving out like Infura recently just tied your wallet address, which is what MetaMask uses. MetaMask uses Infura to connect to the blockchain. So
that's
Infura now
it's
like
not
tracks your IP
acceptable,
with
and
every
it's probably
interaction.
also pointless because you can game this quite
Go ahead.
easily. But yeah, the thing is, it's really a tough challenge. Like, and it's just like also goes much wider than just crypto. Yeah? If you think about it, yeah, we are now in a world with AI where you can like very easily create deepfakes and all of this. What can you still believe? Who is real? Yeah? So also on Twitter, they have a huge problem with like with bots and identification, and it's just tough to do this in a decentralized manner because nobody wants KYC. It would be outrageous. but then it's tough. Like this challenge needs to be solved, and I think whoever solves this will be hugely rewarded. So I mean, a lot of projects are working on it. It remains to be seen whether or not that works well. But yeah, it's yeah.
There's huge potential, though. There is huge potential in solving this problem, because this problem is also like if you solve this problem in Web3, you also solve it in Web2, like the whole Twitter bot problem, or the Facebook bot or the YouTube bot. All of these bots on all of these different platforms, they inflate the value of a platform. They expose people to scams and problematic issues. They can take over like a whole site. You can a bot farm. Like they could take Twitter down. Probably somebody that's bot farm. I mean, like 50,000, 100,000 bots spamming things all at once to the Twitter servers would probably take down this. So
for
it's
example,
a huge problem that is not exclusive
AI,
to crypto.
You can have bots that really talk and speak and chat like genuine human beings. Yeah, and imagine, for example, in a few years you have like a new election in the US, and you have those advanced bots, who are like inviting all those people, who are like fine-tuned to really persuade those people into the one direction they want, into maybe a political direction they want. And all of a sudden you flood all those people, and they think they are talking with genuine human beings in the Twitter DMs or on Facebook, but then it's just a bot farm, or it's just AI, where you have like hundreds of thousands of bots swarming this and trying to persuade people. And like now it already exists. Like we know a bit about this Russian troll farm, that maybe it's a bit over the top. Like I don't believe everything that this has a huge impact, but there are like a couple hundred people sitting there and doing like this exact thing, trying to divide people on Twitter and on other social media, and writing like pro-Russia things. And imagine it's not just a few hundred people who already maybe have a huge impact on the public conversation online. All of a sudden it's millions of people with a minimum amount of work required to set this actually up. So this is like this could be huge. I mean,
yes, it could be. And the issue I think that people still haven't had to encounter is that in the past, like literally 2 weeks before this, like maybe last month, right before ChatGPT just launched, interactions with bots were very like dumb. You can like unless you're in you're in a specific state of mind where you're like sleepy or some other physical thing, you can immediately tell that this is not a real person. Like you look at their Twitter account, they have 26 followers, they follow like 600 people, and their posts are like all like 3-4 sentences that don't really make sense or have cohesion. But we're at a point now that these bots have this ability to connect to a system that can produce elegant human language, that can have a conversation with you about things. I've seen it in post recently. So there's this bot. It's like it's a mathematics bot. So you can ask it like through Reddit comments to talk, and it'll have conversations while answering your question. So it's not something you typically expect, because like the way ChatGPT works is you ask it to do something for you and it does the thing for you, but there's no back and forth. Like while this bot is explaining the situation, it's also having a conversation, telling you about how it thinks. Like oh yeah, I love math that I'm very passionate about. Like it has a back and forth with you. So people need to start working on this problem a lot sooner than I think people will work on this problem.
I mean,
it is ultimately concerning and exciting. So I'm all about it, and we'll see where it
Yeah,
goes.
I think
I
I, s-
want to talk a bit about
put it into a
Decentra.
bit too
Go
negative
ahead
ways. I mean,
first. Yeah,
there
you
are
go
so many
first.
positive ways also which like those AIs can help us. Imagine like having like this personal teacher, everyone. You don't need to go to high school or middle school with some below average teachers who are who are not that smart, but just good enough for teaching here in this middle school or something. But no, you go on the internet, you have this bot, you ask him all the questions you want. You have your personal teacher who encompasses all the wisdom of thousands of years of human development, and you can ask them anything. Um, you want to have like you can do everything. Yeah, I mean it's the perfect teacher, and this opens up so many possibilities. Yeah, it's huge.
You can personalize your education. Yeah. Yeah. I actually felt like we were going to get into this at some point because it's a topic that I feel we're both very passionate about, which is like the educational systems in the world. Because we grew up in very different education systems and we had the same outcome and the same outlook on how to change this and what's wrong with it. I think that so there's one thing that I think issue with this is that there needs to be a human that has the judgment that the AI does not have. So the AI, like, of course, it works and it knows things and it is right a lot of the times, but it can also be confidently wrong, similar to people. I feel though people have this like innate judgment within them to like really point something out if it's not and change course, which I don't think the bots have yet. So I hope to see a future where people, when they go to get an education, they go through like pick your own journey type of right from the start. You don't have to wait until you do that. You pick your own journey. Are you somebody insanely interested in computers? Then you can take that path as early as you want to. Are you someone that likes art? You take that path as early as you want to. So the AIs would be resources which would give the user, the learner, the knowledge required and tuned specifically to help that person in achieving their goals. And the people will be able to have the judgment necessary to say whether or not you need additional support or there needs to be that human that
Yeah, I
makes
think
sure
in the
that things
next
run
years we will
properly.
see a revolution
But I'm happy that
towards
we met.
self-directed
Thank you
education.
for sharing.
Too much now is like this formal education. Uh, you have no freedom as to what you want to learn at a specific time, with whom you want to learn, if you want to learn at all. Yeah, and like this freedom, to decide for yourselves is like the most basic freedom, in my opinion. And that's why I'm also so excited about it, because like this AI teacher, this AI assistant, is like the perfect, your perfect. I don't know. I can't tell you. I'm a German native speaker, so sometimes I'm lost of words. But it's the perfect journey mate, for you to go on this journey of self-directed education, where you really say, okay, I'm deciding for myself what I want to
Yeah.
learn. There's no curriculum. Yeah, you want to learn about coding, then do it. Yeah, you want to, and even if you're just 8 years old, nobody should stop you. You know for yourselves what you are actually excited about, what you want to learn. Nobody needs to tell this to you. So that's my hope for the future, that we go away of this formal education. Obviously it's probably for some people it's still needed, but there should be the opportunity for those people who don't want that to do it differently. But that's not existent now. I mean, a lot of people maybe need the structure and need to be told what to do. It's maybe even easier to live with this. It's easier to live with the belief in God, that you can. Nobody knows if it's true, but it's probably easier if you
Yeah.
believe in God, because now you have a purpose. Yeah? And so is education. If there's structure, if they tell you what to do, you don't need to think too much about everything. Yeah? You aren't bored. But some people have this drive, yeah? And have the knowledge and the
Yeah.
skill set to do it themselves, to be self-directed. Yeah? And
I think the biggest crime of this of the last couple centuries is that we changed people to feel that way. I don't think people are naturally complacent. Naturally, they want to be led. I honestly believe that because I've seen so many people from so many backgrounds have that to go and break all like norms and do what they want to do, regardless of what the world has to say about it, regardless of the price that they have to pay, regardless of the sacrifices they have to make in their social lives, and all of the like societal perception of you without that education. So we've built this educational system not to teach people, but to create subservient people, to create people that won't question things, that will obey your commands, that will run a society. And maybe that's necessary, but I think that, like you said, there needs to be more paths for people to take. And I have to like give a quick shout out to everybody who made a YouTube video teaching me how to code JavaScript. Everybody that taught me anything about crypto, like these people that take it on themselves to spread the wisdom, spread the knowledge, and help us to find our own path. And this is a problem that needs
let's talk about it.
fixed. I'm glad we could discuss it. I want to talk to you about Decentra because let's talk about Decentra because I've been like excited about this start. To give people a bit of background, Daniel and I met through a call that we've both worked on called Ricochet Exchange. We decided to do a hackathon together. We built a platform that so similar to a social media platform connected to your MetaMask wallet where you could do things on a social media platform. And it wasn't successful initially because, well, we're young, we're still gaining experience, and we didn't know exactly what to build. But this opened up the possibilities of these different paths that we could take as people that work professionally in this industry of creating things. And I think that we are always creating a sort of alternative front end to something. I think that's what our power has been since the start.
The very initial
But I want
idea,
you
which I
to
still believe,
talk
maybe at some
about what
point
got you
in
into
coming
Decentra.
years,
What was the
this
initial
will
idea
work, or
behind
do
it?
realize this
Might be
vision
going.
is creating community spaces or the social media where people govern their own space. Yeah, which like it seems at first okay that that's interesting, but why is that needed? Well, you have now Discord servers or Reddit spaces, Reddit subreddits with hundreds of thousands of members. Actually, those are hugely important for the public discourse. A lot of people spend their day each day in this, in the setting, but there is still this one single point of failure, and you need to trust the server owner, the administrators, that they don't delete the server or do whatever they want with it, but because they have the power to do this. And that sounds like crazy. Yeah, you wouldn't want to like this is it far outgrew this initial stage where this was maybe required. When you have hundreds of thousands of people, but a single people can decide about this, this is inherently undemocratic. It's just not so exciting. And if you could now take a token to govern this space, yeah, and the token might be non-transferable, so you don't need to have this financialized aspect, but it might also very well be a tradable token with value attached to it, your own currency for your local economy of this community server. That would be like hugely interesting, yeah, if the people together govern the space through the use of tokens. If they decide to maybe appoint a moderator, they collectively can then also renounce, like kick this moderator out if he doesn't like if he does things that are not acceptable, and all of the sudden this becomes like this trustless medium of communication, which is so much needed. I mean, with Twitter we saw it. Now Elon Musk maybe also a bit overstepped the boundaries. I don't know. Let's not go into too much details. But if there is a single person, a single point of failure, it's always problematic. Yeah, and it doesn't matter if this person is ideologically near to you and you maybe support this. It shouldn't be like this. Yeah, it should be a more democratic way. There should be a more democratic way to govern this and create social medias, which is really governed by the collective. And that was the initial idea. It didn't come into fruition. It was quite tough to realize. We had some problems. We were not a huge team, but at the same time, I always say like, this is super interesting. Also to just do things, to learn things. Yeah. And the tricky thing is, I mean, if you go, for example, and I mean, that's a bit removed now from Decentra. We will go back to Decentra, but I just want to mention it. Like, if you go to university, nobody will tell you, or few people will tell you waste your time just learning and you don't have a financial success or anything. But when you do a startup or a project, all of a sudden, if it doesn't turn out well, it should be a failure. I mean, the US is a bit different, but here in Europe, and it's bullshit. Yeah, I mean, it's also a learning experience, but just a much more valuable learning experience than you could ever get in university or in school. Yeah, so everything you do, and maybe that's like this one thing I want to tell listeners, if there are any, just do what you want and try and experiment, and it will all work out in the end. The dots will connect with each other, but yeah, you have to do things, and it's tough. Yeah, sometimes like for everyone, yeah, because it's very exhausting from an energy perspective and also from a financial perspective. But you have to trust that at some point the dots will connect. And maybe that didn't work out this year, but maybe it will in a different way through a different approach, where we are also now currently working on. And yeah.
I'm a believer that ideas don't die, they just evolve, and I truly believe that what you're talking about is definitely an issue. People are not reliable, and not in a negative. We are all people. Sometimes we get sick, sometimes we go crazy, sometimes our emotions take the best of us, and to let one person have that much over thousands of lives, millions of lives, connections, businesses, I don't think is a very wise decision. So democratization of the internet in general is a very important topic that needs to be worked on in the future, especially since people are actively working against it. People are trying to make it more difficult to do what you want on the internet. People are trying to ban websites. And I don't think that anybody has ultimately the right to do that. Nobody has the right to shut down something that is good, because this internet it's become a part of our minds. It's like an extension of ourselves, and it's like I view it as like another living world, the little pieces that make it up. So we need to work on this problem, but it's a huge overtake, and I think that moving forward, gaining experience, gaining connections, and then eventually gaining capital to do this is the only way to go about it in a foolproof way, where you succeed and you do what you need to do. I don't like fighting uphill battles, which is why at the moment I'm personally experience as possible from as many protocols as possible and connections, so that in the future could make it happen. So Daniel, thank you, because this conversation was very stimulating for me. I've learned a lot, and I think that moving forward now and in the future,
I don't want to shout out anything, but maybe I will close it with saying,
so I appreciate your time.
Basic freedom
Is there anything that you want to shout out?
And like because the freedom to quit and is so hugely important. And it separates slaves from employees. Slaves can't quit. Employees can quit. It's what makes this world. Like, I always, when I look at people or when I look at countries, and I judge them by how much they respect like the freedom to quit of their citizens, or everything. Like, and the freedom to quit, unfortunately, is non-existent in schools today. Is in many countries of this world, in many things, it's also non-existent, or it is made very difficult. And that's also what, I mean, this is quite a rambling, but that's also what led me to crypto in the beginning. This open source culture. You can just fork a protocol. You just can quit. And with this, I also quit this podcast now because I have the freedom to quit. So it was a delight to talk with you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. This was another episode of Decentra Talks. Check out the links and the description below if you want to support us, and thank you for watching.